So in this video, I'm taking more inspiration from the Synthaxe, this great MIDI controller from the 80s, and obviously also Alan Holdsworth and his album Sand. But I want this to be a segue into something else. I want to start talking about stuff like string gauges, for instance. This is an area we really never talk about with MIDI guitar. I think it's an interesting area because pitch-to-MIDI systems like MIDI Guitar 3 or Roland systems or Jamstick or Fishman Triple Play, it's a well-known fact that the higher pitches and the shorter wavelengths contribute to a faster MIDI conversion. So I want to test this idea out. And again, going back to the Synthaxe, seeing that they had a set of 13 strings for the neck, and for the separate part where you pluck the strings, you have, I think they have these 20 gauge strings. I wanted to do something similar, so I wanted to restring a guitar with, say, only 13 strings. Now, I didn't have 13 strings, so I grabbed what I had. So I have 3 B strings and I have 3 G strings on my guitar. They're all in this higher register. So this experiment should show me if there's some sort of playability gain to have higher pitched strings all around. So I'm intending on using my 3 B strings and 3 G strings, slapping on a hexaphonic pickup and tuning this in a standard tuning. And I'll also show you something like a super low tuning for some strings just because I can. But let's begin in the guitar department. This is the guitar I'm intending on violating. This is a Chord and it's headless. And while I still lived in Stockholm, I traded in a Frank Gambale Ibanez Sabre guitar for this one, because I so badly wanted a headless guitar, and this was pure shit. Really haven't used this very much. You have fret sprouts, so I'm cutting my hands open while playing this, but this will have to do, and this is so that I can drill into it, and I don't feel any remorse going at it, doing whatever to this one. So this guitar is designed for this double ball end strings that I also don't have. So I had an adapter on my Steinberger Spirit guitar that I thought, okay, I might use this one instead, so that I can use my old strings and string this up with traditional strings and just an Allen key. The first thing I had to do was to remove this adapter from the Steinberger Spirit guitar. And if you haven't seen one, this is what they look like away from the guitar. And of course it wouldn't fit directly to the guitar. It wouldn't be any fun. So I needed to do some sanding and some fitting of this. And after that, all that needed to be done was to fit the Roland GK3 hex pickup. That, and of course to put the new strings on it. So it looks like a dream to play, and it also seems to be in standard tuning. And how could this be? Shouldn't this be 3 strings sounding like G and 3 strings sounding like B? That's exactly what the actual guitar will sound like. If you listen to the acoustic sound of the guitar strings, you'll have exactly that. And also, if you just connect this GK3 13-pin to the MIDI Guitar 3 software, for instance, that I'm using here, you will get the same result. You will get the same notes for also the MIDI translation to begin with. So a bass, for instance, would sound like this. And of course, since these are exactly the same notes, it doesn't matter what strings you're using. If you're using strings 1, 2, or 3, play the same patterns, the outcome will be the same. You'll get the same pitch output results. And remember that if I would have had it my way, I would have had all the strings in the same gauge tuned to the same note. So I would have exactly the same notes for all strings. But where the magic happens is with the string tuning abilities in MIDI Guitar 3. I can decide each string's output to be exactly what I want it to be. First, we need to tell the MIDI Guitar software how our instrument actually is tuned. And that's a thing we do in the tracker. So when I have the sounds G, 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 B, B, B coming in, I want to change this E, A, D, G, B, E tuning, because when I'm using the string retuning afterwards, it is going to be related to the incoming audio pitches rather than anything else set. Just using these two string gauges, 13 and 17, we have kind of worked our way away from standard tuning. We have 3 strings tuned to G3 and we have 3 strings tuned to B3. And this is kind of important because when we're going back to standard tuning, we aim to have the string that is furthest away from us be an E4. So for that string, we need to move it up 5 semitones. And within this MIDI Guitar string retuning capabilities, we can move up 24 semitones or down 24 semitones. So we have great many choices on kinds of tunings if we want to. If I want a B3 to be an E4, I need to move it up 5 semitones. The second string is of course still this B3 that I want it to be, so I'm not going to do anything. This will be 0 on this string retuner. The third string going up is going to be -4 semitones because we want this to be the G string. Now moving over to the G strings section, we want the first G string 5 semitones down, G3 down to a D3, that's 5 semitones down. And afterwards we're talking about a G3 down to a A2, and that's 10 semitones down. And the last one, the top string, a G3 that we want to retune down to an E2, and that's 15 semitones down. And that's all. Now we have standard tuning for this. So as if this wasn't impressive by itself, here's the real kicker. This also works for audio now. So you can actually put the string retuner on a chain with no instruments or no nothing in it, and it will have the same effect on your audio as it does on the MIDI. So you can retune from anything to anything, which of course gives you endless possibilities when it comes to retuning. I mean, if you look at the retuner, you also see it doesn't only retune in semitones. It also retunes in cents. So if you want to use this tool for microtonal retunings of your whole instrument, go right ahead. This will work also on your acoustic tone. So as long as you have a good acoustic tone that you're happy with, I'm not really happy with the hexaphonic sound, the hexaphonic pickup sound every time. But with these possibilities, I'm more than willing to work on that, because this is almost like the thing that drew me into working with MIDI to begin with. The possibility of retuning on the spot, going between different kinds of tunings. This is, if we're going back to Allan Holdsworth, when he stopped using the Synthaxe, this is actually what Allan Holdsworth would have wanted for a guitar. He could have sort of moved on from all his crazy tunings that he used with the Synthaxe and just applied them to his electric guitar. I know that Allan Holdsworth and the guys at Synthaxe scoffed at the pitch-to-glitch systems that they call it, but you can't really compare that kind of pitch-to-MIDI system with what we have here today. Of course you won't get the grit out of an E 4 string tuned down to an E2. There are some overtones to the actual sound of the E2 that you won't get along retuning it down like this. But listen to this stuff and think of what you could do with the retuning possibilities inside of a software like MIDI Guitar. Now, this is pretty far removed from anything that you'd hear from the Alan Holdsworth output, but perhaps more in line with stuff you'd hear on Instagram today. This is played in real time, so I could actually do this live if I want to. The only accessory I would need is an expression pedal to switch between the regular tuning and the lower tuning that you hear in this clip. So both of the effects that I'm using are audio effect. I'm using an amp from Neural DSP, and I'm also using Infiltrator 2 to chop things up. The retuning that I'm doing is on the actual audio coming in before it goes into the amp. And after the amp, it's fed into Infiltrator, which chops it up into this funny bits. This is completely reenactable, so this could be a performance. Electronics and software shouldn't be excluded as a gimmick because they can be a highly integral part of your musical expression, and I wouldn't want anybody to look down on anybody that would want to retune their guitar digitally as opposed to physically. I mean, what's the use of sitting on stage and retuning your guitar in front of an audience if you don't need to? Or if you're bringing along differently tuned instruments to a gig, say you have one DAD-GAD tuned instrument and one drop D tuned guitar and a standard tuned guitar. I mean, you can do away with all of this. You can have a guitar in standard tuning and use the string retuning for those effects. Or you start with DAD-GAD tuning on your physical instrument and do the retuning inside of MIDI Guitar if you want to get back to regular tuning or drop D or whatever. I leave it up to you to imagine all the use cases for this, but I would say it's groundbreaking. I haven't seen anything like this. So the problem with evaluating a system like this, it's so remote from anything I've played before. I mean, trying to play only these thinner strings for everything and on a new guitar, I mean, it feels like a faster conversion. The MIDI is coming out closer to what you feel that you pick than with thicker strings. So as far as that experiment goes, I must say that I'm positively surprised, but I'm kind of disappointed in myself because I was under the impression that I would be able to restring this guitar and play it like I haven't played anything else. But you pick very differently depending on the gauge of the string. We're stuck in our analog heads, as Mal Chapman from Synthaxe would say, because we're kind of used to the different gauges of the strings and how they react to our different kinds of dampening them. I mean, I don't need to dampen these thinner strings as much or even in the same way as I do with the thicker strings when it comes to the MIDI conversion. So this video has to be more of an introduction to an idea than being able to deliver some hard and fast results. Now, this guitar is probably the worst one I have, so it takes a while for me to adapt to playing this as well. So I won't be playing any fast runs or anything like that really. if you're interested in chugging, if metal is your thing, don't go here. You really can't use a 17 string for your 6th or your lowest E string and be able to chug in Meshuggah style. So don't even try that. But if you're interested in the Alan Holdsworth style of playing, where you free yourselves from the shackles of this traditional way of addressing the guitar. I mean, if you start looking at your controller as a completely new instrument, then I think that the idea of using the same gauge strings all across is actually not a bad idea at all. This was a lot of fun, and I'll get back to you with more results in the future, but for now, thanks and bye.